Michael Boatwright gunned down XXXTentacion in broad daylight. Eric Holder shot Nipsey Hussle over one street word.
At the end of the day, the rules of the jungle was the rules of the jungle.
Well, many of these men were caught, and in this video, I will be taking you through what happened to them. Michael Boatwright and the murder of XXXTentacion. On June 18, 2018, 20-year-old rapper XXXTentacion, Jase Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy, was fatally shot outside Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida. The killing unfolded in less than a minute, but it would take years before justice arrived. Surveillance footage and DNA evidence pointed to Michael Boatwright, a 22-year-old from Pompano Beach, as the gunman who pulled the trigger during a $50,000 armed robbery that ended in murder. The group behind the attack included Boatwright, Dedrick Williams, Trayvon Newsom, and Robert Allen. According to investigators, Williams rented the black Dodge Journey SUV used in the ambush, while Boatwright and Newsom carried out the assault. Inside the dealership, Williams and Allen were caught on video purchasing black masks minutes before the killing, footage that prosecutors later described as a movie of the murder.
We, the jury, find as follows: as to the defendant, Dedrick Williams, in this case, the defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment.
Investigators tracked the getaway vehicle using the rental record and surveillance timestamps. Forensic tests on discarded masks found DNA traces linked to Boatwright, with results showing odds rarer than 1 in 929 nonillion. His phone also connected via Bluetooth to the SUV during the attack, and ballistics matched a .22 caliber casing found at the scene to ammunition recovered at his home. Boatwright was arrested roughly 17 days after the murder, initially on unrelated drug charges. He was formally indicted for first-degree murder and armed robbery in early July 2018, following a grand jury review. During the 2023 trial, prosecutors used security footage, cell tower data, and co-defendant Robert Allen's testimony to reconstruct the crime minute by minute. Allen testified that Boatwright fired 3 rounds into XXXTentacion's BMW after a brief struggle. In March 2023, Boatwright, Williams, and Newsom were found guilty on all counts. On April 6th, Judge Michael Usin sentenced them each to life in prison. Boatwright reportedly showed little emotion as the verdict was read. The case highlighted the decisive role of digital forensics and surveillance in modern homicide investigations, a blend of DNA precision and visual evidence that ultimately ensured XXXTentacion's killers would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. But XXXTentacion's murder wasn't an isolated tragedy, just a glimpse into a recurring pattern of fame, loyalty, and retaliation that would claim another life only a year later: Nipsey Hussle. Eric Holder and the murder of Nipsey Hussle. On March 31st, 2019, Grammy-nominated rapper and activist Nipsey Hussle, Ermias Asghedom, was shot multiple times outside the Marathon clothing store he owned in South Los Angeles. The gunman was Eric R. Holder Jr., a 29-year-old local and fellow member of the Rollin' 60s Crips gang. The motive stemmed from a personal dispute over snitching accusations, a term that, in gang culture, often carries a death sentence. Minutes before the shooting, Holder approached Hussle for a casual conversation. According to witness Herman Cowboy Douglas, Hussle warned Holder that people were saying there's paperwork on you, suggesting rumors of him cooperating with law enforcement. The exchange was calm and ended with a handshake, but Holder left visibly upset. He returned within minutes armed with 2 handguns.
At the end of the day, the rules of the jungle was the rules of the jungle. You know, you can't call a dude a snitch in his face and expect him not to respond.
Surveillance footage and eyewitnesses showed Holder firing at least 10 shots with 2 different guns, striking Hussle in the head and torso. He then kicked Hussle in the head before fleeing in a waiting car driven by Brianita Nicholson, who later testified against him. 2 bystanders were also injured. Holder was arrested 2 days later after a tip led police to his hiding place in Bellflower, California. In 2022, Holder was convicted of first-degree murder, with jurors rejecting his claim of acting in the heat of passion. During sentencing in February 2023, he received 60 years to life in prison, 25 years for murder, 25 for firearm enhancements, and additional time for injuring bystanders. The case exposed the deadly intersection between fame and street loyalty. Nipsey's attempt to mediate a local rumor, not ignite confrontation, cost him his life. His killer, Eric Holder, remains incarcerated at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, serving one of California's longest active gang-related murder sentences. While Nipsey's death exposed the dangers of street loyalty, the next case revealed how fame itself could become a target, even for a 20-year-old star thousands of miles away. Corey Walker and the murder of Pop Smoke. In the early morning hours of February 19, 2020, rising Brooklyn drill rapper Pop Smoke, born Bashar Baraka Jackson, was shot and killed during a violent home invasion in the Hollywood Hills. He was only 20 years old. The assailants, a group of 5 young men, had targeted the rented Airbnb after Pop Smoke accidentally revealed its address in a social media post. The robbery was led by Corey Walker, then 19, who supplied the gun and drove the group to the scene. The attack happened at approximately 4:30 a.m. when 4 masked intruders scaled a balcony and burst into the home. Pop Smoke was in the shower when he heard noises and tried to confront them. According to police reports, he was pistol whipped and shot 3 times after refusing to hand over his diamond-studded Rolex and Cuban link chain. The shooter, a 15-year-old accomplice, used Walker's handgun, a Beretta 92 FS, to fire the fatal rounds. The robbers fled with the Rolex, which they sold for just $2,000. The crime was not gang retaliation, as early rumors suggested, but a botched robbery fueled by greed and social media exposure. LAPD detectives confirmed that Pop Smoke's own Instagram story, showing shopping bags with a visible address label, inadvertently led the killers to his location. For months, investigators pieced together the case through surveillance footage, witness statements, and phone data. On July 9, 2020, nearly 5 months later, Walker and 4 others were arrested during coordinated early morning raids across Los Angeles. The suspects were tied to a local street gang, and Walker was identified as the planner who provided the gun and getaway vehicle. During sentencing, prosecutors stated that the robbery was cold and calculated, emphasizing Walker's role as the only adult. In February 2025, he pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and 2 counts of home invasion robbery, receiving 29 years in state prison. The juvenile co-defendants received separate, lesser sentences in juvenile court, one as short as 4 years. Walker told the court, "There's no apology that amounts to the taking of someone's life." Pop Smoke's mother, Lisa Jackson, delivered a victim impact statement saying, "Because of gun violence, I'll never see my son grow into the man he was becoming." The tragedy of Pop Smoke's murder served as a stark warning for the digital age, where a single post can make fame and death collide. Pop Smoke's killers were driven by greed, but the violence that took Young Dolph's life was born from something deeper: rivalry, betrayal, and the illusion of respect. Justin Johnson and the murder of Young Dolph. On Diet. November 17, 2021, Memphis rapper Young Dolph, real name Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., was shot and killed while buying cookies at Makita's Homemade Butter Cookies in South Memphis. The attack, carried out in broad daylight, stunned the hip-hop community. Surveillance footage captured 2 masked men emerging from a white Mercedes-Benz and firing over 20 rounds from high-powered rifles. The lead shooter was later identified as Justin Johnson, a 23-year-old aspiring rapper who went by the name Straight Drop. Authorities alleged that Johnson and accomplice Cornelia Smith ambushed Young Dolph as part of a planned hit. While the exact motive remains debated, prosecutors argued it was tied to a $100,000 bounty allegedly ordered by Anthony Big Jook Mims, the brother of rapper Yo Gotti, though this claim was never proven in court. The feud between Young Dolph's label, Paper Route Empire, and Gotti's collective music group, CMG, had fueled years of tension, including diss tracks and prior shootings. After the killing, the suspects fled in the Mercedes, later found torched behind a home in South Memphis. The discovery of that vehicle, along with DNA and surveillance data, led police to Johnson, who vanished shortly after the murder. Following a 57-day manhunt, U.S. Marshals arrested him on January 13, 2022 in Indiana, alongside his cousin Shundale Barnett, who was charged as an accessory for helping him flee. During the 2024 trial, prosecutors presented ballistic evidence tying shell casings from the scene to a Draco pistol recovered in Johnson's vehicle. His co-defendant, Cornelia Smith, testified under a plea deal that both men had expected payment for the hit but never received it. Despite defense claims of misidentification, jurors found Johnson guilty of first-degree murder, criminal possession of a firearm, and theft. In September 2024, Johnson was sentenced to life in prison, with parole eligibility after 63 years. 2 months later, he received an additional 35 years for federal weapons violations. The alleged organizer, Hernandez Govan, was acquitted in 2025 for lack of evidence, and Big Jook was killed in an unrelated shooting before trial. The murder of Young Dolph symbolized the destructive reach of rap rivalries, where fame, loyalty, and local grudges can converge into deadly ambition. Just a year after Dolph's murder, tragedy struck again, this time in Houston, where a night of celebration spiraled into chaos and claimed the life of Takeoff. Patrick Clark and the murder of Takeoff. On November 1st, 2022, the hip-hop world was shaken by the sudden death of Kershnik Karibal, better known as Takeoff, one-third of the rap trio Migos. The 28-year-old artist was fatally shot outside 810 Billiards and Bowling in Houston, Texas, during what police later described as a private event gone wrong. The man charged with his murder was Patrick Xavier Clark, a 33-year-old Houston promoter and DJ known locally as DJ Pat. According to investigators, Takeoff was an unintended victim caught in the crossfire of a heated argument between two groups following a dice game involving his uncle and bandmate, Quavo. Surveillance footage showed a chaotic scene, an exchange of shouts, sudden gunfire, and people scattering. Police said Clark fired a .40 caliber handgun, striking Takeoff in the head and torso. Witnesses recalled that Takeoff had been standing quietly away from the argument moments before the shooting. In a press conference, Houston Police Chief Troy Finner stated, "Takeoff was not involved in any wrongdoing. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time." Forensic analysis of shell casings and video evidence led to Clark's arrest 1 month later, on December 1st, 2022, after authorities matched fingerprints and surveillance footage from multiple angles around the venue. Police also found that Clark had applied for an expedited passport days before his arrest and had purchased tickets to Mexico, suggesting plans to flee. They discovered large amounts of cash in his possession, which prosecutors cited as evidence of intent to escape prosecution. Clark's defense attorney denied these claims, arguing that the passport was for a planned vacation, not evasion. In May 2023, a Harris County grand jury indicted Clark on murder and firearm charges. He was later convicted in June 2024, receiving a 40-year prison sentence. The court emphasized that the shooting demonstrated a reckless disregard for life, not premeditated intent. Takeoff's death underscored the persistent intersection of fame, violence, and nightlife in hip-hop culture. His funeral drew thousands, including Drake and Justin Bieber, marking the end of an era for one of rap's most influential groups. Yet to understand the roots of violence in hip-hop, we have to look further back, to the 1990s, when another feud on the West Coast changed music history forever. Orlando Anderson and the murder of Tupac Shakur. The unsolved murder of Tupac Shakur remains one of hip-hop's most debated mysteries, though few names have been as closely tied to it as Orlando Anderson. On September 7, 1996, Tupac was gunned down on the Las Vegas Strip after attending a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand. He died 6 days later from his injuries. Anderson, a 21-year-old Southside Compton Crip, was long suspected of being the gunman, but was never formally charged before his own death. The sequence of events began inside the MGM Grand lobby, where Tupac, Suge Knight, and members of Death Row Records spotted Anderson, the same man accused of robbing a Death Row affiliate months earlier. Surveillance footage captured Tupac and his entourage confronting and assaulting Anderson in a hallway, knocking him to the ground. Within hours, the altercation had escalated into what investigators later considered a retaliatory attack. At around 11:15 p.m., while Knight and Tupac sat in a black BMW at a red light on Flamingo Road, a white Cadillac pulled alongside. Multiple shots were fired, 4 striking Tupac, 2 in the chest, 1 in the arm, and 1 in the thigh. Knight suffered minor wounds from glass fragments. Witnesses saw the Cadillac speed away toward the I-15 freeway. Anderson denied involvement, calling the rumors false and damaging, though police records show that he was questioned multiple times. No weapon or vehicle was ever directly linked to him. The case grew colder as key witnesses refused to cooperate, often citing fear of retaliation. In later years, Las Vegas homicide detectives maintained that Anderson was the primary suspect, citing gang rivalries and testimony from former Crips members who claimed he sought revenge for the MGM beating. Anderson was killed 2 years later, on May 29, 1998, during a shootout at a car wash in Compton. He was 23. Police described the incident as gang-related, unrelated to Tupac's case, but it effectively closed the chapter on his alleged role. Decades later, in 2023, Las Vegas police arrested Dwayne "Keffy D. Davis," Anderson's uncle, after he admitted in interviews that Anderson was indeed the shooter, a claim prosecutors now cite in Davis's ongoing murder trial. Tupac's murder and Anderson's death became inseparable in public consciousness, 2 lives consumed by the same cycle of retaliation that defined 1990s West Coast hip-hop. Decades later, new voices would reopen the same wounds. One man's confession, Orlando Anderson's own uncle, would bring the Tupac story full circle. Keff D, Dwayne Davis, and the prosecution in Tupac's murder. Nearly 3 decades after Tupac's death, Dwayne Kef D. Davis, a former Southside Compton Crip and uncle of Orlando Anderson, became the first person ever charged in connection to the killing. On September 29, 2023, Las Vegas police arrested Davis on a murder conspiracy charge, marking a major breakthrough in one of hip-hop's longest-standing mysteries. Investigators had long suspected Davis of organizing the attack, but lacked sufficient evidence until his own admissions in recent years. In both his memoir, Compton Street Legend, 2019, and several televised interviews, Davis publicly described being inside the white Cadillac that pulled up alongside Suge Knight's BMW the night of September 7, 1996. He claimed that the car contained 4 men, himself, his nephew Orlando Anderson, Terrence Brown, and DeAndre Smith, and that the shots came from the back seat. According to prosecutors, Davis's statements amounted to a confession of participation in a gang conspiracy. Davis's own words became the cornerstone of the indictment. Detectives executed a search warrant on his Henderson, Nevada home in July 2023, seizing computers, photographs, and copies of his book. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson stated that Davis had essentially talked himself into custody. During a press briefing, police emphasized that while Anderson was long believed to be the triggerman, Davis was the shot caller, the man who set the events in motion. Davis pleaded not guilty in October 2023 and remains in custody awaiting trial as of late 2025. Prosecutors allege the motive was revenge for the earlier MGM grand assault on Anderson. The defense argues that Davis's statements were embellished to boost book sales and that no physical evidence connects him to the shooting. Regardless of the trial's outcome, Keffe D's prosecution reopened a wound the hip-hop world never healed. For many, it represented long-delayed accountability. For others, it raised questions about the reliability of memory, self-incrimination, and the blurred line between confession and performance. But Tupac's case wasn't the only one haunted by silence and street code. In New York, another rap icon's murder would remain unsolved for nearly 20 years. Kenneth McGriff and the murder of Jam Master Jay, Jason Mizell. On October 30th, 2002, the hip-hop world lost one of its pioneers when Jam Master Jay of Run DMC was shot inside his Queens, New York recording studio. For nearly 2 decades, the case went cold, until investigators began linking the killing to Queens drug trafficker Kenneth Supreme McGriff, a one-time neighborhood power broker whose criminal network intersected with the music industry. McGriff, already serving a federal life sentence for murder for hire and narcotics conspiracy, was never charged in Jay's killing, but prosecutors and witnesses repeatedly tied his organization to the atmosphere of fear surrounding the event. The evening of the murder, Jam Master Jay, real name Jason Mizell, was meeting several associates at 24/7 Studios in Jamaica, Queens. Shortly after 7:30 p.m., 2 men were buzzed in. Within seconds, gunfire erupted. Mizell was struck once in the head and killed instantly, while another man, Uriel Tony Washington, was wounded. Police recovered shell casings from a .40 caliber handgun, but little else. No forced entry suggested that Jay knew his assailants. Rumors swirled that the attack stemmed from a drug dispute rather than a music industry feud. By 2006, federal informants had told investigators that Mizell had become entangled in narcotics distribution after Run DMC's commercial decline. One alleged supplier was McGriff, whose Supreme team once controlled large portions of South Jamaica's cocaine trade in the 1980s. McGriff, then under heavy federal scrutiny, was never directly implicated, yet detectives said his reach created the network that allowed the killing to happen with impunity. 2 of McGriff's known associates, Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington, emerged as suspects, but witnesses were too afraid to testify. For years, Jay's family accused law enforcement of abandoning the case. In August 2020, federal prosecutors finally indicted Jordan and Washington, alleging they murdered Mizell after a drug deal worth 10 kilograms of cocaine fell apart. Court documents asserted that Mizell had excluded them from the shipment's profits, prompting revenge. The indictment described how Jordan fired the fatal shot while Washington acted as lookout. McGriff's name resurfaced only as background, an influence, not a defendant, but his legend loomed over every hearing. Both men pleaded not guilty, and the trial began in 2024. On February 27, 2024, a Brooklyn jury convicted them of murder while engaged in narcotics trafficking. Each now faces a mandatory life sentence. Though Kenneth McGriff was not in the room, investigators maintain that the empire he built decades earlier created the environment of intimidation that silenced witnesses for nearly 20 years. The verdict closed one of rap's longest-running mysteries and cemented the connection between street enterprise and the early 2000s New York music scene. The conspiracy around Jam Master Jay's death was bigger than one man, and the truth finally surfaced when his old friends were forced to face the past. Ronald Washington and the execution of Jam Master Jay. Ronald Washington, a longtime acquaintance of Jam Master Jay, went from trusted friend to convicted accomplice in one of hip-hop's darkest tragedies. When prosecutors brought charges in 2020, Washington was already serving time for armed robbery. Their theory, Washington and Carl Jordan Jr. entered the Queen's studio on October 30th, 2002, intending to murder Jay over a soured cocaine deal. Unlike speculation that placed industry rivalries behind the killing, the government argued that it was about money, betrayal, and survival inside a collapsing drug pipeline. Witnesses testified that Washington acted as the lookout while Jordan fired the fatal shot. According to trial transcripts, both men confronted Mizell after he allegedly refused to distribute a new 10-kilogram cocaine shipment through them, cutting them out of potential profits exceeding $200,000. When Mizell tried to defuse the argument, Jordan opened fire at point-blank range. The bullet struck behind the right ear, instant death. Washington, prosecutors said, held other occupants at gunpoint to ensure no interference. For 18 years, the case stalled, partly because witnesses feared retaliation. FBI agent Gerard McCarthy testified that Washington threatened multiple people to keep quiet. The breakthrough came when one witness, protected under a relocation program, finally identified both men in 2017. That testimony, combined with DNA and phone evidence, revived the cold case. During the 2024 federal trial, prosecutors detailed Washington's violent history, including robberies of music executives in the early 1990s and repeated parole violations. Defense attorneys insisted he was merely present that night, but cooperating witnesses contradicted him. After 4 weeks of testimony and 3 days of deliberation, the jury convicted both defendants of murder while engaged in drug trafficking and firearm use causing death. Washington, now 60, faces life without parole at a federal penitentiary. For Jam Master Jay's family, the conviction delivered delayed justice rather than closure. Outside the courthouse, his son TJ Mizell said, "It took 22 years, but truth finally stood up." The case highlighted how fear and loyalty within drug-funded music circles can silence witnesses for generations, and how persistence can still dismantle that code. And even after decades of change, the violence didn't stop. In Atlanta, a rising star's success would end in gunfire, this time at the hands of someone he once called a brother. Eric Dwayne Brown and the murder of Bankroll Fresh. On March 4th, 2016, Atlanta rapper Bankroll Fresh, real name Trentavious White, was shot and killed outside Street Exec Studios in Northwest Atlanta. He was 28 years old and on the cusp of mainstream recognition after his breakout single Hot Boy. Surveillance footage later revealed a chaotic exchange of gunfire involving several people, but only one man, Eric Dwayne No Plug Brown, a close friend turned rival, was ever publicly identified as the shooter. According to Atlanta police, the confrontation began after a heated argument inside the studio over money and loyalty. Witnesses said that Bankroll and Brown, both regulars at the facility, had been feuding for weeks. Brown left the building and returned moments later armed with an assault-style rifle. Bankroll responded with his own weapon. The two exchanged more than 50 shots in the parking lot, leaving shell casings scattered across the pavement. Video surveillance, later reviewed by investigators, showed Brown retreating toward his vehicle as gunfire erupted. Ballistics matched multiple calibers, confirming that both men fired weapons. When police arrived, they found Bankroll lying near the studio entrance with multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. He was pronounced dead at Grady Memorial Hospital. Officers recovered 2 firearms inside the studio, but none on Bankroll's body. Days after the shooting, Brown turned himself in and cooperated with detectives. In a 2016 DJ Vlad interview, he claimed he fired only in self-defense. "He shot first, I just shot back." Police corroborated portions of his account through ballistics evidence showing that shots came from both directions. After reviewing the footage and witness statements, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office ruled the killing a mutual shootout, declining to file charges. Brown was released. Without indictment, the decision divided Atlanta's hip-hop community. Some viewed it as justified self-defense. Others saw it as another example of street violence escaping accountability. Despite freedom, Brown's reputation never recovered. He withdrew from public life as fans demanded answers. In a 2017 follow-up interview, he said, "It's something I'll live with forever." Bankroll Fresh's death became symbolic of Atlanta's violent rap era, where friendship, fame, and firearms collided. In 2020, a memorial mural was unveiled outside Street Exec Studios. For many, it stands not only as a tribute, but as a warning about how quickly ego and pride can turn deadly in the pursuit of respect. That brings us to the end of this story. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.